Legendary cards allow players in Paladins to augment their playstyle and dramatically change their impact on a game. But throughout the course of the legendaries being introduced into the esports scene and the casual scene, we have seen one type of legendary card always fall by the wayside. Through the balance changes and all of the adjustments in Paladins, there's been nothing more consistent than the lack of legendaries that support a team-wide benefit or ultimates. That is to say, legendaries that give your entire team a boon and maybe sacrifice on a personal boon you could receive, or legendaries that only provide you a benefit during your ultimate and not throughout the entire course of a match. Today we'll be dissecting why this is, why these choices are made, why players may generally sway away from picking up these legendaries in both casual and high-level play, and why, if they ever did decide to play these legendaries, it could change the fate of our esports as we know it, and maybe not in a good way. To begin the conversation, let's take a look as to why these legendaries are often ignored at the onset. To study this, let's take a look at Tyra and her legendary Hunting Party. Tyra has an ability called Hunter's Mark, which grants her, personally, 15% extra damage to whoever the mark is applied to. However, when the Hunting Party legendary is taken, all of this 15% bonus damage applies to your teammates as well, meaning anyone with that Hunter's Mark is taking a potential 75% more damage on the battlefield than they normally would have. This is an insanely powerful benefit and only makes strong characters that much stronger. So why isn't it taken? From a practical standpoint, one of the reasons it probably isn't taken is because many people have to coordinate around receiving value from this legendary, meaning that if you're solo queuing, you can't anticipate that your teammates will follow up on your damage increase. In an environment where you don't know anyone, you're meeting them for the first time and can't accurately test their follow-up abilities or skills as teammates, it can be very hard to put all of your eggs in the basket of expecting others to perform well. This goes hand in hand with the idea that a coordinated effort is needed to get the most out of this legendary. Most importantly, this leads people to understand that they cannot control the outcome of this legendary, and that it's actually a coin toss whenever you select it. Will you get good teammates? Will you not? More importantly, those who are queuing up as 5 in voice chat will definitely have a better chance at making this work, but it's still not going to be guaranteed that the fight takes place with all members of the team able to take advantage of the extra bonus damage. You could still find yourself in a lot of 1v1s, thus almost making this legendary useless. In fact, one of the key reasons I think this is not picked up in particular is that this is a completely selfless choice for the Tyra, meaning that she gains no added benefit from this, and this is only a buff applied to the team. Tyra players are then forced into a very odd decision. Do they give up 30% lifesteal on their left mouse button weapon shots? Do they give up double damage on their right mouse button grenade in order to take the exact same skill that they have and only augment their teammates' ability to do damage with that skill? That's like asking one contestant of a game show to choose between a Porsche, a Lamborghini, or to keep the exact same car that they have and allow everyone else who's a contestant on the show to have that car as well. You can see why when there's no investment into your teammates at the start of a game, you don't know them at all, it can be very difficult to select the option that only benefits them. But Raynday, it's still really good. I mean, this should mean that we don't see it in casuals, of course, but in 5-mans and the competitive scene, we should see it a lot, correct? Correct, maybe, but we don't. Why is that? The real reason I think that we don't see this legendary in competitive or with high-level players is because tracking the extra damage that you actually get from this legendary doesn't happen. There's no way to know what type of impact that legendary had, and so there's no feedback on how well it did. Why did you choose it? What damage did you create that wouldn't have been there in the first place? Both Lifeblood and Mercy Kill give Tyra immediate feedback as to how she's valuing from her legendary choices, whereas the value of Hunter's Mark is only left to the naked eye, and the actual statistics of it are not shown to you anywhere. From a psychological principle, this also makes sense, considering immediate feedback is often more gratifying to the user, as it's more likely for people to opt into things that continually reward them, or at least immediately show them the value that they're gaining. That's why without a strong and committed plan of saving or investment, it's hard for people to do those things naturally. So do ultimate legendaries follow the same principles as to why people don't pick them up in high-level play? I think a lack of understanding and immediate feedback to the value of how ultimate legendaries are impacting your game is definitely a reason why they're not picked up more often. But that's nowhere near the entirety of the story, because if it was, Shaolin's Heat Haze legendary, which gives his weapon shots during his ultimate 100% lifesteal, would be a relatively common pick. Or I mean, we would have seen it at least once, right? But we haven't. The immediate feedback is there, because every time you hit a shot in your ultimate, it's clear that in the bottom left-hand corner, your health bar is raising back up again. So it can't have to do with knowing what you're getting from that legendary or getting the immediate gratification from it. It also can't have to do with being a selfless pick, because this is a very selfish legendary that only applies to your health. This leads me to the crux and the most interesting part of this conversation, which is that it's just not as good as his other legendaries. And that's where things like Tyra's Hunting Party legendary and Maldamba's Wakono's Chosen legendary fall as well. There are simply better choices for those champions to make that help impact their performance and what they're meant to do on the battlefield more consistently and effectively than the ultimate legendaries do. Who cares if in one moment you can actually lifesteal 100% when all game you could have been shooting 15% faster and gaining that 15% boon in your ultimate as well. Why do I need you to do 15% more damage to a target that's running at me as a Tyra when I could just take Mercy Kill and immediately kill that flanker by hitting my own grenade? That allows me to stay alive in the fight and keep doing damage, whereas my 15% only allows you to do more damage to a player you're not even near. In the case of Maldamba, the primary legendary taken is Ripened Gourd, which allows him to have a persistent slow of 40% on his gourd ability, making it a very spammable and zone-like element to his kit that wasn't really there before, at least at as high a level. This adds value to Maldamba that wasn't there prior, and if you don't take it and another Maldamba does, they can compete at a higher level than you can in supporting their team, from a utility perspective that is. The other reason the ultimate legendaries aren't as good in general, in my opinion, is because of the fact that they don't help you throughout the course of a game, and they only help you in one moment. And in fact, in order to get to that moment of having your ultimate, you need to have done well prior to that. Getting your ultimate quickly and using it very often is a result of how much damage you're doing and how well you're playing throughout the game. So Shaolin, for example, has to reduce the amount of damage that he does in order to have an ultimate legendary. But when he reduces the amount of damage he does, he can't use his ultimates as much. So he usually ends up caught between a Heat Haze and a Desert Shadow, which is recurve. Get it? It's in the middle of both of those legendaries. It's the one in the... oh, never mind. The other issue that I think pros and high-level players face when choosing or not choosing an ultimate legendary is realizing that they're investing into singular moments that may or may not come. The ability to lifesteal off of the perfect moment and stay alive as the last man standing and defend the objective as Shaolin could be amazing and change the game, absolutely. But that may never happen. I mean, what if you're never able to get to that situation? What if it just doesn't show up that way and you get pressured in a corner by a Bomb King and you can't even make it onto the point? What if the point ends up being clouded with Ying clones and barrack turrets and shields, and anytime you shoot those, you don't actually lifesteal, so it ends up being worthless after all? There's a lot of chance involved as to whether you'll get the chance to show off the power of that legendary and actually prove that it was a worthwhile pick. Whereas a lot of the other legendaries that impact your overall gameplay will allow you yourself to change the course of the game. And if $100,000 is on the line, would you rather put it to RNG, or would you try to control as much of the pace of the game as possible with your own play? To bet everything on one moment, one perfect Hunter's Mark, one perfect Dread Serpent, or one perfect Heat Haze from Shaolin doesn't exactly move things in your favor from a statistical standpoint. So in my opinion, this is why we don't see ultimate legendaries and team-wide legendaries picked up very often in a high-level competitive scene. There's too much chance involved, and usually they're not as good as the other options over the course of a game. But what if they were as good? What if ultimate legendaries had such a high payoff that they became valued by pro players, that the reward was worth the risk? What if Wakono's Chosen wasn't a 20% damage increase, but a 100% damage increase? What if Shaolin, instead of just lifestealing in his ultimate, also did double damage? Well, maybe we've got a different story. But what is the story? Unfortunately, I believe that what we would see is that when ultimates become the best choice, they would become the only choice. A Maldamba ultimate that could give a Drogos or a Shaolin one hit potential onto any champion in the entire game would almost be a must pick. Just look at how impactful the change to Ceres's ultimate became and how much of a mainstay she is in the high level scene now. When ultimates gain the ability to sway the entire course of a game, of a fight, and team wipe the enemy, they become standard for the esports. Not only does this kill diversity, but when ultimates rule your game, you end up living and dying by those ultimates, playing until your next ultimate is available and then going in, because that's the safest bet. This unfortunately would take away the essence of what I feel is Paladins and the esports scene in general for this game. So much of the excitement in watching is seeing the diversity of legendaries. It's being able to watch 1v1s in narrow corridors and the winners of those duels being able to impact the fight at a higher degree, being able to shift things for their teams off of spectacular play, out of outplay, out of outmaneuvering and positioning, rather than just hitting E and letting that do the work for them. So at this point, I leave it to you, my audience. What do you all think about the legendary situation in Paladins? Do you think it should change? Do you want them to be stronger, or do you think that they should stay the way they are? Is it a good or bad thing for ultimate and team-wide legendaries to be extremely viable at high levels of play? Maybe you're someone who thinks these legendaries are already really viable and just thinks that the high-level pros haven't put enough energy into making them work. Whatever your thoughts are, I want to know in the comments section below. In summary, legendaries are an extremely exciting part of this game. Having ultimate legendaries and team-wide legendaries creates diversity for lower levels and higher levels of play, but having them get too powerful to where they're viable and a must pick, I think creates a system that doesn't promote one of the most interesting and entertaining things that I think allows Paladins to stand out in the esports community. The verdict is still out, but ultimately, time will tell. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to interact with me more, follow me on my Twitter at Raynday Gaming. And if you're a big time supporter of the channel, go ahead and get some new Raynday Gaming t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, mugs, phone cases, wherever you want at Designed by Humans for Raynday Gaming. I just opened my new store, and it'd be awesome if you guys bought a shirt to support the channel and show your Rainstorm love. Let me know if you did that in the comment section below as well. As always, my friends, remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you all next time.